Hi there, it's Andy Mack from Akai Pro, and I'd like to welcome you to the MPC Studio Masterclass series. Now, throughout this masterclass, we've created 11 exciting episodes that walks you through the entire beat making process using your MPC Studio. So we're going to cover making your beats from the ground upwards, creating bass lines using 808s and synth bass textures, chords and melodics using plug-in instruments, through to adding lo-fi effects, mixing techniques, through to arranging your track and exporting your files directly out of MPC. And we've also included exclusive project files so you can follow along with the entire course. So why don't you sit back and let's dive straight in to the MPC Studio Masterclass.
Hi there, welcome to the MPC Academy. My name's Andy Mack, and I'm going to be walking you through this series of videos with our new Masterclass series, covering the whole production process using our brand new MPC Studio and the MPC software. Now, there's going to be 11 episodes in the Masterclass, so we're going to be looking at creating our beat from the ground upwards, adding all of our different elements such as melodics, chords, progressions, to our 808 and synth bass lines, to mixing, adding effects, and then arranging our beat into more of a song structure, and then going through the export process for sharing your beats online or stemming them out. But let's have a listen to the track we're going to be creating in the masterclass.
Thanks for watching our MPC Studio Masterclass series. Now, to learn more about the MPC, head over to the Beats Academy website and you can see all of the other videos that we have available at akaipro.com. See you next time.
So as you can hear, this project covers all of the fundamental elements of a track, such as your drums, 808, bass lines, chord and lead melodies, to the complete song arrangement, which means that there's so many great things for us to cover. Now, before we begin, make sure you download the masterclass project files that we've provided using the link in the video description below. This gives you access to the same project files, which includes the sequences, samples, and the instruments used in this masterclass. This means that you can follow along with the whole process, but we're also going to be creating this beat from the ground up so you can learn all of the different techniques and features which can then be applied to your own beat making. Now, once you've downloaded the project file, open up the MPC software and simply drag the XPJ file called MPC Studio Masterclass inside the MPC software, and this will automatically load up the project template for you. And once loaded, you'll now have the same assets. So as I go through my track and sequences, you can see that we have everything already named for you to start the masterclass. Now, to start making our beats, we need to start with an empty sequence. Now, to do this, it's really straightforward. We hold down the shift button and we press select, and then we turn the data wheel to the right, and we've now got an empty sequence to start programming our beats. Now, we need to name our beat. So we're going to head over to the top left of our software where it says sequence, and double click, and let's call this masterclass, but let's name it number 2. And then below this we have our bars and tempo. Now, we're going to keep our bar length at 4 at the moment, but we're going to extend that later in the series, but we're going to change our tempo. So to do this, hold down the tempo button and then use the data wheel to change your tempo. So we're going to take this down to 96 BPM, and then we need to select an empty track to start recording our idea. So press track select, and we can now see all of the different tracks that are available. So we're going to start on track 1, but we also need to tell MPC what type of track this is going to be. Now, it defaults on drums, but if we hold down shift and press the program select, you see it says track type. So here, MPC has a number of different track types. So we have drums, which is for our conventional way of playing drum kits and samples. Then we have key groups, which is a more sample-based way of playing sounds. So we can play 808 synth basses. And then we have plugins. Now, this is where you access MPC's internal plugin instruments. And we have everything from hype through to drum synth, which will all be accessed here. And you can also access third-party plugins such as Serum if you own those. Then we have MIDI for controlling external synthesizers and modules, or you can use the MIDI in and the MIDI out. Then we have Clip, which is for our clip launching mode. So if you want to work with loops, this is the perfect mode to be using for triggering loops on the pads. Then we have CV, which allows us to trigger and record CV modular racks. So let's go back to drums, and this is the track type that we're using to put the foundation down of our beat. So now we need to name our track. So press track select, and then we'll go over to the software, and we're going to call this drums. And then now we've done that, you'll see that the LCD screen is updated, displaying our track name. Now, to access the drum kit that we're going to be using to start our beat, if you press the Program Select button, this allows you to select any of the drum kits loaded into MPC's memory by using the data wheel, which is displayed on the LCD screen. Now, if you want to load more drum kits from the factory libraries, just press the Browser button, and this will open up MPC's media browser. Now, once this is opened, you will now see on the screen all of the drum kits that are available in that expansion pack. So as an example, we're inside Gold Dust, and as I move through the screen, it's given me a preview of each drum kit. And to load that kit, simply just push down on the data wheel. And now that'll be loaded into MPC's memory. Now we can access all of the different expansion packs as well. Just simply click on the relevant expansion pack and you'll see all of the different drum kits that are available inside each pack. Now if you select sample, this allows you to now browse all of the different samples that are available in each expansion pack. Now before we begin our masterclass, we need to make sure we save our work. Now to do this is very straightforward, and we can do this from the hardware. So if you hold down the mode button and press pad 16, this will automatically save everything that you've got loaded into memory. If we go to file on the software, we can go to save project as, which allows you to create a new project name or use save project to rewrite over your existing name. Now that we've covered all of the basics, on our next episode, I'm going to be walking you through the entire process of building our beat from scratch using all of the assets that we've just loaded. So until next time, see you on the next lesson. Hi there, and welcome to episode 2 of our MPC Studio Masterclass series. And in this lesson, we're going to be laying down the foundation of our beat from the ground upwards using MPC Studio and the MPC software. Now, if you haven't downloaded the project files for the masterclass, make sure you follow the link in the video description below and you can download the assets. You can also revert back to episode 1 that will walk you through the process of loading up the masterclass project files. Now, a quick recap on our last lesson. We've named our sequence Masterclass 2 and we've set our tempo. Now, if you haven't done your tempo yet, press the tempo button on the MPC Studio and set this to 96 BPM. Now press track select and make sure you're on track 1, drums. And our track mode is set to drums by holding down shift and program edit. So this means that all of our pads are now going to be playing drum kits. Now, if you press program select again, you can use the data wheel to select all of the different kits in memory. Now, the one we're using is called SY, which is Snipe Young Dent Kit. And this will now play on the pads. So now that's loaded, without further ado, we're going to start moving forward and programming our beat from the ground upwards. So let's press track select so we bring up track 1, and also make sure you have quantize on, which is our TC button. So when that's lit, that means that everything we play is going to be quantized in time. So let's start. We're going to hit record and play and lay down our kick and snare. Now that we've recorded our kick and snare, we're going to lay down our hi-hats. But let's turn off our metronome. Now we have a rhythm by pressing shift, play and start. So let's do a basic hi-hat pattern. And now we're going to use note repeat to double and triple our hi-hats, but this will be controlled by using our touch strip, allowing us to jump between time divisions, making it really easy to program hi-hats. Simply hold down the touch strip and the pad. Now that we've recorded our basic hi-hat pattern, let's turn off overdub, and then we're going to navigate to bank B so we can access more samples. And we're going to use this snap to add over our clap. Now let's add some percussion elements over the top of our beat. So now we're going to navigate back to bank A, and we're going to add just a vocal texture just to the end of our beat. So let's hit overdub. And now I want to add some more lo-fi hats to give a second level of rhythm. Now these are working alongside our brighter hats. So now we're going to do some triplets using note repeat again and the touch strip. So hit overdub and we'll do triplets on this. Now you can hear that's already taken the beat to a whole new level just by adding those extra textures, giving us more rhythm and more movement. Now we're going to navigate to track 2, and what we're going to do is add some vocal textures. So hit shift and program select. We're on a drum track, press program, and now select the closer kit. And this has got some really nice ambient vocals that again set the mood, giving us some lo-fi meets R&B radio. And now we're going to add some additional percussion that's going to add a really nice drive underneath our beat. So now that we've locked in our beat, on our next episode, we're going to start adding some musical melodics over our drums. So I hope you enjoyed episode 2 of our MPC Studio Masterclass series. See you on the next lesson. Hi there, and welcome to episode 3 of our MPC Studio Masterclass series. And in this episode, we're going to be using the MPC Studio's Chords and Scales mode to create a chord progression over our beat using MPC's internal instrument plugins. Now, before we start, I've created a chord progression template specially for this masterclass, which you can download in the link below and install into the MPC software using the instructions on the PDF, giving you the same chords that I'm using. So let's have a quick recap and listen to the beat so far. Now, to access our plugin instruments, we're going to change our track to track 3, and then we need to change our track type to plugins. So hold shift, program select, and change it from drums to plugins. Now this means that we can now utilize any of the internal plugin instruments in MPC or any third-party plugin instruments. Now if you press program select, this allows you to scroll through all of the plugin instruments that are preloaded in the Masterclass project. We have pads from Hype, lo-fi pianos, strings, synth leads, all ready for you to use to follow along with the masterclass. Whenever you load up plugin instruments, the pads on your MPC Studio will turn into keys like on a keyboard, allowing you to play scales and chords. If we use the bank select, this enables us to jump between octaves. Now, to access all of the features in Chords and Scales mode, let's dive into the feature. Hold down Shift and 16 levels, and you can now see it's set on chromatic, which is how our pads are playing. But we can also set different parameters such as the scale type, the key of our song. So we can turn our data wheel, and we can now select Notes mode. We can go to Chords. So this means the pads will trigger chords. And then we've got progressions. So this allows us to play different types of progressions that are tied to different types of music genres that are all preloaded inside MPC software. Now with the file that I've provided for this masterclass, you can now play the same chords that we're going to be using for our song. The great thing about progressions is that you can also create all your own unique progressions for your own music styles and play these directly from the pads. So let's start recording our first instrument. So let's press track select and we're on track 3, then press program select and we're going to select our hype dark string pad. Now if you also want to use a different preset for this track, you can simply press program select and now you can access all of the different presets inside Hype, which are all categorized into different categories such as leads, pads, plucks, and then you can just push down into that category and select that sound. You can also do this directly from the software by opening up the interface, and now you can see all the presets where you can select the sound that you want on your track. So now let's start recording our pads. So let's press track select, make sure we're on track 3 and hit record, play and start. So now that we've recorded our pads, we're going to navigate to track 4 and now we're going to lay down some roads over our pads. So we go shift, program select, which should be on plugins, then press program select, and now we can select our instrument, which is called Rhodes Electric Piano Chorus. So as we hit the pads, we're playing the same chords. So let's name this track. So we're going to head over to our track 4, double click on the software, let's type in Rhodes, press enter, and now we're ready to record. So hit record, play and start. In our next episode, we're going to be laying down our 808 and our synth bass over our beat. So see you in the next lesson. Hi there, and welcome to episode 4 in our MPC Studio Masterclass series. Now, in this exciting video, we're going to be looking at adding 808s and synth bass lines over our beat, utilizing the F9, 808, and synth bass expansions that come with your MPC Studio. Now, we're also going to be using our scales mode so we can play our bass line utilizing our pads. So let's have a listen to the beat so far now that we've added our drums and our chords from our previous lessons. Now you can really hear that our production is starting to take shape. It has a great feel, but we now need that 808 and the retro synth 90s bass sound. So let's go to track 5 and we're going to set this track up to start laying down our bass line. So use the data wheel and you can name the track as well. We've done this a few times now. So just double click on the software and just name your track and followed by enter. Then press shift and program select so we can change our track type from plugins to key group. Now the reason why we need key group because the 808 and synth expansions are sampled instruments. And this is how you play them on the pads by using key group mode. Now if you've got a MIDI controller keyboard, you can also trigger these sounds directly from the keyboard by plugging this either into the back of your MPC or into the USB of your computer. Now, to access the instruments that we're going to be using, if we press down on Program Select, we can now select the presets that I've loaded in the masterclass. So this is where we can now select our 808. Now, the instrument preset that we're using is called Circuit 808. So if you haven't got that selected, make sure you do, because that's going to be our foundation for our bass line. Now let's select Chords and Scales mode by holding down Shift and 16 levels, and we're going to change progressions to chromatic. This means that we can play notes now instead of chords. Now, if we press Shift and 16 levels again, we can set the key of our song, which is actually in C. And if we press this again, we want to select natural minor because we're in a minor key. And as you can see, you can actually select all of the different keys such as majors, pentatonic. So make sure you're set on natural minor, and then our octave is set on 1 because we're playing a bass line and we want the pads to be playing the lower range of the sound. So as we play the pads now, we can now go to a lower octave using our pads. So we go to A, and you can hear that we're set in the right range for our bass line. So now what we're going to do, we're going to play some bass lines along with our track and work out a melody that fits with the groove and record it. Okay, so that's going to work. So let's lock this in, hit record, play and start. Now we've got our bass line sounding good and it's all quantized automatically. So now that we recorded the 808, we're going to go to track 6 and we're going to lay down our synth bass. So hold down Shift, Program Select, and make sure you're on key group, and then press Program Select again. And the preset that we're going to load is called Mini M Squared. And this is going to give us our synth bass. Now we're already in our scales mode, so we can just play the pads. And we know what's working within our range and the key of our song. Now, if we want to change the level of our bass sound, we can use the touch strip to balance this between our 808. So if you push down on the touch strip and select Program Levels, we can now use the touch strip to adjust the levels of our synth bass. So now that we've got everything set, we know the notes that we're playing within our bass line, so we can just dive straight in, hit record, and start laying down our bass line. Our level, and then on our next episode we're going to be adding some additional percussion and drums around our beat to add even more movement. See you next time. Hi there, and welcome to episode 5 of our MPC Studio Masterclass series. Now, in this lesson, we're going to be adding some additional drums and textures and rhythms over our beat to give it even more movement by utilizing more of our drum kits. So let's have a listen to what we've created so far. Now, to lay down our additional drums, we're going to go to track 7, and this has already been named additional drums. And then now you need to press Shift and Program Select to make sure our track type is on drums. And then press Program Select again and make sure that you've got the SY Dent Kit selected. And I've also populated some extra samples onto banks B, C, and D for this masterclass. But if you press the browser button, You can now browse all of the samples inside any of the expansions, press a pad and push down on the data wheel to simply load more sounds onto the pads. So let's go to our main menu. So we'll press the main button and we're going to go to Bank A, and then we're going to add a rim shot on the offbeat over our beat. Now we're at an open hat. Here's our shaker. Then we're going to go to Bank B and add some additional percussion. Bank C with our clap with a big reverb decay. Then we've got a vinyl scratch. And then we'll add some more percussion. Just added an ambient texture. Then we've got this muted guitar, which really works with the rhythm. Like an ambient musical loop, and then we'll add some more guitar stabs. As you can hear, all these elements had a huge difference to the overall beat and the feel of our groove. Now on our next episode, we're going to be adding some top line melodies over our track. See you next time. Hi there, and welcome to episode 6 of our MPC Studio Masterclass series. Now, in this lesson, we're going to be adding some lead top line melodies using our internal plugin instruments inside MPC Studio to add some even more textures to our track. So to start setting up for our lead lines, what we're going to do is we're going to navigate to our next track. So use the data wheel and we're going to go to track 8, which has already been named within inside your masterclass, which is called lead line. And then if you press Shift, Program Select, and again, make sure that you've got plugin track type selected. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the Mode button and we're going to open up the Program Edit window on our software. So press Mode and then Pad 6, and this will bring up the interfaces of all of the plugin instruments inside MPC. So when you press Program Select and turn the data wheel, you can now see all of the different instruments that we've got preloaded within our masterclass. So we're going to select the sound that says Future Lead, and this is what we're going to be using for the first part of our top lead line. Now we're already in our chromatic mode. So again, if you hold down Shift 16 levels, you can see that we're in chromatic and we're in a key of C and we're in natural minor. So this is the same that we used on our bass lines. So now everything's set. We're going to hit record and play and put down our first melody. Now we're going to go to track 9 and add our top lead. Shift and Program Select, we're on plugins, Program Select to select the instrument, and we're using LA Plug. So let's hit record and lay down our top melody. Now let's press Track Select, and we're going to go to track 10 and use Odyssey to add some additional synth layers. On our next episode, we're going to be adding some vocal textures and chops over our track. So see you on the next lesson. Hi there, and welcome to episode 7 in our MPC Studio Masterclass series. Now in this episode, we're going to be covering the process of chopping some vocals, then using our new Vocal Suite plugins to add today's retuning effect, along with some lo-fi plugin textures to add over our beat. Now we can actually use MPC Studio's pads to chop our samples in real time, and then take these chops and really add some interesting textures to give us that really modern vocal sound.
I know. Hey! Don't wait for me.
Now, so to chop up vocals, it's very straightforward. So first thing I'm going to do, let's select a sample, and then we press mode and we go to sample edit, and this will then display our sample on the MPC software. Now we can now use the pads to trigger the sample and chop in real time. So as I hit each pad, this is creating the slice directly to the pad. Now once you finish your chops, we can actually edit the start and end points on each individual pad by selecting either the sample start or the sample end point, and then select the pad. And we can now use our data wheel to adjust the start and end points. If you hold down Shift, you can actually do smaller increments to the start and end points. So once we're happy with all of our sample chops, we need to turn this into a program so we can now add this to our beat. So within the software, there's a number of ways that we can do this. We could select non-destructive editing, and we can create a program, or we can extract these as completely new samples. So let's press new program and press do it, and now we'll have a new program with all of our vocal chops. So let's select a new track, track 13, shift and program select, make sure we're on drums, then program select again, and then we're going to scroll to a new kit that's been created called Trap Soul Vocals 1. So if you've got that highlighted, you'll now hear all of the chops across the pads. So we can now use these chops over our track, but what I want to do is add some effects over these chops. So what we can do, we're on our program channel. This means that any effects that we apply will affect all of the chops. Now if we press the pad icon, this means that any effects that we apply will be applied only to that individual pad. But we can also load and save effects racks, which have got custom effects already created for you. So let's select vocals, and then there's a whole bunch of presets you can select here with popular current radio sounds. So let's try this. And now all of the chops will have this preset. Now this is a very easy way to apply effects over vocals. So what we're going to do as well, we're going to color our pads. So we're going to go down to Program, Pad Color, and here we can just give all of our pads one solid color so we know that these are just simple vocal chops. So we'll give that blue. And now what we're going to do is we're going to navigate back to track 12, where I had all of my original vocal chops within the masterclass. They're on bank C and D. So let's select these and hit record and play. In our next episode, we're going to be arranging our beat into more of a song structure by taking all of our elements and bringing them together. So until next time, see you then. Hi there, and welcome to episode 8 in our MPC Studio Masterclass series. Now, in this lesson, we're going to take our beat and we're going to start structuring this into a song arrangement, but we're going to be doing this in real time by using a few key features on the MPC Studio hardware. Now, there's a number of ways that we can arrange our beat, but I'm going to be using track mute mode, which allows us to turn tracks on and off in real time using MPC Studio's pads. But the first thing I'm going to do is extend the length of our beat from 4 bars. So this is what we currently have. So we need to extend this to pretty much the length of a full song. So we're going to go to sequence and we're going to double the length, which takes us to 8. And then we're going to repeat this process again, which is going to give us 16 bars. And then you can keep repeating this process until you're happy with the length. So you could have 64 or 128, whatever you feel is needed for your beat. So we're going to stick with 64 bars for this masterclass. And then so I can see the entire length now of our beat, MPC Studio has a zoom button that allows us to zoom in and out of the piano roll. We can also use the locate button that allows us to use the data wheel to scroll through the timeline. Now, let's turn on track mute. So we're going to hold down shift and press the pad mute button. So now you can see all of our tracks that are active within our sequence. And then as I hit the pad, they would change to red, which means that that particular track is now muted. And then to unmute those tracks, you just simply press them again and they will go back to the yellow color. So as an example, if I want my intro to just be with my drums or my vocal, I can basically turn all of these other tracks off and press play. Turn that off, bring in my 808, take it out. And this is what we can record in real time to build up the structure of our whole track. So all I need to do now is record this as a complete pass by pressing the record button and basically turn on the tracks that I want to start the track with and build up my arrangement. Section, let's bring in all of our top line melodies. Then we're going to bring our track down as we enter into the verse. To our pre-chorus. Now we're bringing our full arrangement. Now we could start laying down the second verse idea, or we could simply just do an outro. But let's do an outro for the purpose of this video. Pull our drums out, take our top lead, so that is how quickly you can create a song structure using MPC's track mute mode. So now everything that we've recorded will now play back, giving us the full arrangement that we've done in real time. On our next episode, we're going to be getting into mixing our beat and adding some fine tweaks before we export straight out. Hi there, and welcome to episode 9 in our MPC Studio Masterclass series. Now in this episode, we're going to be mixing our beat by utilising MPC's onboard Air Effects plugin collection, which delivers studio quality effects directly inside the software to enhance our music production. Now the first thing I'm going to walk through is MPC's inspector view, which you can open and close by using the I tab at the bottom of the software. Now the inspector view displays all of the key channel strip parameters that we need to mix our track. We can also hold down the mode button and press pad 8, which will open up our channel mixer, displaying all of our levels and all of our effects in one screen. So let's take a look at the inspector. Now we have our pad mixer view, which is the small square, displaying individual volume, panning, along with mutes and solos. We can also insert up to 4 individual effects in our insert section. And then below this, we have 4 auxiliaries for applying simple effects such as reverbs, delays, choruses. Now on our insert effects, we can turn these on and off. And if we double click, we can open up the interface where we can change all of the parameters. So as you can see, the inspector is a real fast way that we can apply effects to our individual samples. Next, we have our channel mixer, which controls the overall level of our effects and our whole drum kit. So say we want to apply an effect across our whole drum kit, we can go and insert the type of effect that we want, which is now applied to the whole kit. So here you can hear a delay across our whole drum kit. We can turn that off, and then we can use our auxiliaries to apply reverb to the whole drum kit. And you'll also see that as we hit each pad, the inspector will update so we can see the individual pad level and the overall track level. We can also use the touch strip to control our levels. Here I can control the program level of the track, and if we now turn our dial to pad level, we can select a pad and you'll see the touch strip update. Now also when mixing, it's always good to pick a section of the song that we can work with, that we can loop around to balance our levels. So I'm going to work from bar 5 to bar 8, which will give us enough of our beat to work with. So without further ado, let's dive in and start mixing our beat. Now the first thing I want to change is my kick drum. Now I don't want to balance out the levels, I actually want to change the sound. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select our kick drum on pad 1. And basically, I want my kick drum to be a little bit more punchy in the mix. And MPC software has got some great tools to do this. So we're going to hold the mode button down and press pad 6. That opens up Program Edit, giving us access to one of our key features, which is drum layering, where we can trigger up to 4 different sounds per pad. So I've added some different types of kick drums that we can try in our mix. So let's bring the volume of the first one down, bring our second layer. This is SY17, and this has got a nice punch to it. Now, if we navigate to the right, each pad has up to 8 drum effects that we can apply, and one of these effects is soft clipping. So as we increase this, we're adding saturation and distortion to our sound, giving it more punch in the mix. So now our kick is knocking a lot harder in our mix. Now the next sound I want to listen to is our finger snap. So we're going to go to bank beat. And for me, the sound doesn't have enough transients on the front. I want it to basically cut a lot louder in the mix without increasing the volume. So we go to our insert effects, and I've applied a transient designer from our Akai collection, which basically is like an envelope that adds a lot more front to the sound, and it will make it punch through the mix. So that's without, and now let's turn it on. So you can hear straight away the difference this makes to the snap. So let's have a listen to our mix so far. We can already hear the changes that's made to our beat. So now I'm going to select our rim shot, and what I want to do is use our auxiliary sends to apply some reverb. So as I showed you before, we've got different effects set up on these. So if we increase number 1, we've now got a little bit of space on our rim shot. Now, the great thing about auxiliaries is that we don't have to apply these effects to different tracks. We can basically go into our channel mixer, and let's turn those off, and now you can see our 4 auxiliaries. So this one has reverb, so this will basically allow us to apply reverb to any track by using those sends. And then our next track has delay, and you can change these out to whatever you want, but it's a very fast way, and it also optimizes performance because you're not applying loads of plugins onto different tracks. So let's add some reverb on the clap using the auxiliary. And now let's play the beat. Now, another important aspect of mixing is stereo width, which is panning. So we're going to pan our hi-hats to the left and to the right. So this gives us a lot more space as well, because we don't want the same type of sounds occupying the same space. So let's pan these over as well. And now let's play our mix. So already we can feel that our beat has got a lot more space, a lot more punch. But I also want to treat some of our instruments. And another little technique is also this stereo panning. So I'm going to go to our pad, and there's a great plugin which is called Auto Pan. And this will basically move the pad from left and right as our beat's playing, creating more space. Now, I'm also going to add a filter to our pad. So what we're going to do, we're going to go up to our pad insert, and then we're going to go to our effects, and we're going to go to air effects, and here we're going to select our air filter. So let's double click, and this opens up the interface. And we're going to select a high pass filter. And what this is going to allow us to do is to remove some of the low end, which might potentially interfere with our bass, 808 and kick. So there's a lot going on the low end. So we've shelved everything from 150 downwards. And this is a very subtle change, but it helps clean the mix. So let's add the same process to our Rhodes track, which has got a nice chorus on it. And what we're going to do is we're going to add auto pan to this as well, which is already inserted. And let's bring up our send 1 for reverb and send 2, which adds some chorus to our sound. And the key thing with mixing is all about subtle changes. And then I'm going to go to our vocal samples and add some textures to those. So they're located on track 1, and we go to Bank D. And I'm going to add a nice long delay. Now this is already on your project file, so just turn this on. And now that bounces left and right. It's a real nice ping pong delay. So on our next episode, we're going to be adding some lo-fi effects, and we're going to be controlling those using our touch strip. So until the next episode, see you next time. Hi there, and welcome to episode 10 in our MPC Studio Masterclass series. Now in this episode, we're going to be looking at adding some of MPC's lo-fi effects plugins over our beat using MPC Studio's touch strip to control the effects in real time. Now, MPC software includes a whole collection of modern day plugin effects such as half speed, diode clipper, to tube saturation and filters, which are perfect for adding today's textures to your production. Now, how we apply these effects in MPC is also very straightforward. If we hold down the touch strip button, bringing up our Q-Link controls, we can then use the pads to select any of the 16 Q-Link controls available, each with different effects parameters assigned. So we can then use our touch strip to control these effects. Now as an example, Q-Link number 2 has a wet and dry effect assigned. So we assign this to the drum kit that we want to use by going to our program, selecting the kit, then the pad that we want to trigger the effect on. So we select our pad. Then underneath this, where it says Q-Link parameters, we then go to the effect that we want to add. So our plugin is under insert number 2, which is half speed, and we want to select the mix wet and dry. So now I go to the touch strip, and we're now affecting the wet and dry level. So let's see how this works in real time.
Don't wait for me.
So we're going to use some of these techniques in real time to record over our beat. And we're going to do this by pressing the automation right button, which goes red. So that means any changes that I'm making with the touch strip will be recorded on our timeline. Now let's move our plugin down. And underneath our piano roll, you'll see where MPC Studio will record the automation. As I move the touch strip, the automation is visually displayed. So let's turn our automation on to read and play back. So we're going to do the same again. This time we're going to navigate to track 12 to our vocal track. And we have a parameter already assigned. So hold down the touch strip and press pad 4. And now we're controlling these parameters. So let's hit automation and play. We can also apply these techniques to our plug-in instrument tracks by adding a lo-fi tape stop effect, which I've inserted onto our instrument pad sound. So what I've done, I've used the XY Effects insert plugin, which we're going to bring up now, and one of the presets there is tape stop. So what I've done, I've assigned the on and off parameter on the tape stop plugin onto a Q-Link. So we go to Q-Link number 3, we've selected our pad sound, and then I've selected the insert, which is number 3, and then we've selected the effect. So now, when we play the sequence, I can control tape stop from the touch strip. So I can now use this feature from the touch strip and record this as automation over our beat. So all we need to do is put MPC Studio into automation mode and press play. To play this back, let's turn automation onto read and press play. You can apply any of these techniques to any plugins, any effects, all in real time to the Q-Links controlled by MPC Studio's touch strip. We can also take this a step further. If we go to our touch strip button and select the touch strip parameter, we can now activate the Touch Effects plugin inside the software. And this has a whole bunch of presets that you can use across your whole mix. So as you can see on the LCD screen, we can scroll through all of the different presets available. So as soon as we play our track, we can actually apply these in real time for a live performance. On our final episode, I'm going to be showing you how you can export your track out of MPC as an MP3 WAV file or stems to bring into your DAW. Hi there, and welcome to our final episode, which is number 11 in our MPC Studio Masterclass series. This one we're covering how to export our beats out of MPC so we can then upload them online, send them to a friend, or even export as stems so you can bring the sounds into another DAW, or you might even want to send your beats to a pro mix and mastering engineer for that final treatment, and this will give them access to all of the audio files. Now to do this is very simple. Now within our software, we're going to head up to the File tab. Then under this we're going to go to Export, and we're going to go down to Audio Mixdown. So here we can render out our stereo output of our beat. We can include the master effects that we might have on the chain, and then we can select our file format. So I've got it selected as an MP3, which is a great format for uploading and sending across as email, but we can also select WAV file, AIFF, and we can also select our bit rate, so 16, 24-bit, 32 float. So we're going to use MP3, and all we simply do is press export, and now we just simply need to name our beat. So you can call this whatever you want, and once you've named your beat, we simply press the save button, and now we're exporting out. Now once MPC's finished exporting, just navigate to your desktop and you'll see your MP3 file wherever you've saved it as your location. And now we can just play that back. Now, if we want to stem out our track so we can send it to our mix engineer, this is also very straightforward. So we're going to navigate to File, and we're going to go down to Export and then to Audio Mixdown. And this time we're going to take it off stereo output and select separate programs, WAV file, and then 24-bit or 32 float, whatever you want to use, and press Export. And this is now going to take each individual program and create its own separate WAV file. So we're going to create a folder name. So we're going to call this Masterclass Stems. Press Do It. And then we're going to give each file a name. So we're going to call this Masterclass Stems. Press Save. And now MPC is exporting out all of our individual parts into stems. So once that's completed, just close down the software, and then what we'll do is navigate to our desktop and we'll go to our Masterclass Stems folder. So we'll click inside here, and now you can see all of the individual passes. Now what we'll do as well, we're just going to open up Logic and we're going to drag our Masterclass Stems straight inside this project, and then we're going to play these back. So let's grab all of these, pull them in to our arrangement, press OK, and now we've got all of our stems from our MPC project inside your DAW. And now that we've got our stems in our DAW, it's now up to you if you want to do your vocals, you want to mix your track, or send it to a mix engineer. So thanks for watching our MPC Studio Masterclass, a beginner's guide to beat making. I hope you've learned a lot of different techniques throughout these 11 episodes, but you can also head over to the Akai Pro website to watch even more of our Beats Academy videos. So until next time, I'm Andy Mack. Thanks again for watching, and have a great time making beats.
Thanks for watching our MPC Studio Masterclass series. Now, to learn more about the MPC, head over to the Beats Academy website and you can see all of the other videos that we have available at akaipro.com. See you next time.